Hi guys, it's Miss Barlett, and I'm really excited to share with you my very first video demonstration. The first project we're going to be working on this school year is making a sketchbook, and our sketchbook is inspired by the story we just watched called The Dot, and we're going to be covering our whole sketchbook with lots of colorful dots in really creative, interesting ways. Your sketchbook is going to be inside of a folder that looks like this. And I'm going to give everybody a folder, and each folder has a little space for you to write your name. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to use a Sharpie to write your name neatly on the tab so that you can read it and I can read it too. And this is the only thing we're using the Sharpie for. So once your name is on this little tab at the top, you can put your top on the Sharpie and put your Sharpie away because we're finished with it. The next thing you're going to do is open the folder and turn it upside down so your name is hidden, and your folder should be completely on this big sheet of painting paper. And this is just going to help keep the table sort of clean because our printing job today is pretty messy. So again, here's my folder with my name on the tab. I'm going to open it up all the way and then turn it around so the name is hidden on the back. And this will be the cover of my sketchbook. Everybody's going to get a sheet of bubble wrap. I know that's really exciting. But in order to have really cool dots, we're not going to be popping the dots. It might happen by accident, but to create the coolest texture, we really need the air to be in these little bubbles. So you're going to try really hard not to pop them. One side of the bubble wrap is sort of smooth. If you feel it, it's sort of smooth. And one side is really bumpy. And you're going to do all of your painting today on the bumpy side of your bubble wrap. You have your brush. You remember your brush. Sometimes I call him Bob, and he's in a cup of water. You don't want your brush to be too wet today, so if you need to dry it off, you're welcome to dry it off on the painting paper over here a little bit. And then I'm ready for painting. I'm going to be painting directly onto the bubble wrap, and I have a couple different colors to choose from. I don't have all the same color choices you have at your table because right now I'm painting at home and I am missing orange, I can tell already. But that's okay, because I'll be making orange as I'm printing. I'm going to ask you to start with either the cool colors first or your warm colors. And for those of you who remember from last year, your cool colors are green, blue, and purple, and your warm colors are yellow, red, and orange. So you're going to start with one of those families first. I'm going to start today with the cool colors, I think. And whatever you paint is completely up to you. Now the trick to printing on your sketchbook is to paint and then print sort of quickly. So you're not going to spend a whole lot of time painting on your bubble wrap. You might just start with one color just to sort of explore and see what happens. So I'm painting on my bubbles. And while the paint is still wet, I'm going to turn it around and give it just a gentle rub. Remember, we don't want it to pop. And I'm going to pull it off like that. Okay, so I'm painting on the bubbly, rough part and rubbing the back, which is the smooth part. So that created a really interesting texture. I'm going to wash my brush off and I'm going to dry it off over here on this big painting sheet of paper, and I'm going to try a different color combination, and I'm going to paint in the same kind of space where I painted that purple color. Like this. Maybe I'll make my green shape a little bit bigger. And remember, you want to go kind of fast because the paint dries, and if the paint dries before you flip and rub, it won't print. You can overlap your colors if you want. Give it a gentle rub and pull it up. So some of my dots ended up over here on my painting paper, and that's completely okay. So right now I'm just working on making this really kind of cool texture. I can also paint letters or shapes or things. So let's see what might happen if I paint maybe a flower. Here's the inside part of my flower. You know, actually that little circle-y shape kind of looks like a little flower itself. So I might just keep that like that. I'm just gonna wash and dry my brush off quickly, and maybe I'll make a stem right here. I'm working on my art stuff, buddy. I can help you in a second. And you see it looks kind of like a flower and a stem. I'm gonna turn it around, give it a gentle rub, pull it off, and it's kind of there. You know, today you can't really make any mistakes. It's sort of an experimenting day, so whatever you do is completely okay. Now that my brush is clean and dry, I might experiment with some of these warm colors. And I'm gonna overlap some of these warm colors a little bit. So I'm gonna see what happens when I mix the yellow and the green together. I think it's kind of cool that even the spaces on my bubble wrap where I haven't added paint in a while, they're still kind of wet. And even though I haven't added more paint, I can rub like this. And I can sort of keep printing. It's pretty cool. So today is really just about experimenting with the paint and the bubble wrap. You're gonna print on the right side and the left side of your sketchbook. So I'm gonna wash. Remember, you can dry your brush off over here in this little painted space. I have an audience. My two guys are watching me paint. I wonder if you ever have an audience at home too when you're drawing or playing video games, if you have maybe mom or dad likes to watch you. There's a weird line. Let's see what happens when I print that weird line on the other side of the folder. That's kind of cool. So today's really just kind of about experimenting with all these interesting dots. One thing I figured out is that if when I'm rubbing the bubble wrap, I press too hard. Let's see if I can overlap here and see what happens. If I press too hard and wiggle the bubble wrap, it does something a little bit different. Let's give it a little wiggle, see if I can do something different. See how the dots sort of smeared around? That's kind of cool. You just want to be real gentle when you're doing that so you're not popping the bubbles. Remember, the air in the pockets is what's making this really cool dot texture. We're going to spend all of our art time today filling the right side and the left side of your sketchbooks with bubbles, with these cool dots. And when it's time to go, I'm going to have some friends collect the bubble wrap because we can rinse it off and reuse it, and we'll maybe use it on another day for a different kind of project. And as we're cleaning up, pardon my arms, as we're cleaning up, I'll ask you to bring to the drying rack the whole sheet of painting paper. So you're not going to pick this up because it's kind of wet and sticky and you'll get paint all over your fingers if you don't have it already. You're going to pick up the whole sheet of white painting paper and bring the whole thing over to the drying rack so they'll dry together. The next time you see this sketchbook, the paint will of course be dry. This will be my cover, and we're going to work on adding some pages to the sketchbook so that we can use them for sketching. So when you head to your table, remember the first step is to use your Sharpie to write your name. Open it all the way, flip it upside down so your name is hidden, and then you're going to start working on painting your bubble wrap with shapes, lines, and colors to create an interesting pattern on the outside of your sketchbook. I think it's going to be really fun.